Welcome again to Classical Homeopathy by Bill Gray. Today we're going to discuss a few of the mineral remedies. I've mentioned how we are looking for personalities that match um, cured cases from various kingdoms and families in nature. And today we'll discuss a few of the mineral ones. I want to get into details about individual personality types. The first is natrum, which is sodium, and I want to make a point to say that the people of this personality are not deficient in sodium in their diet. This is not a chemical phenomenon, it's an energy phenomenon, as explained earlier. Natrum people tend to be romantic, idealist type people. They're watchful and thinking. They're not the center of attention. They're more off to the side and observing and philosophizing. They look at the way of interacting between people as being ideally the golden rule: do unto others as you would have them do unto you. And they think this would create more harmony in the world in general. And they have a profound belief in this. Their ethics are about what makes harmony amongst people. They don't like conflict. They are romantic, so as they go through life, they often have romantic disappointments, and it's a major, if not the major, remedy for grief, even chronic grief from a loss, from a romantic loss or even a loss through death. Their characteristic is, like many minerals, they tend to be more rational. They put their mind on top of their emotions. So even though they're sensitive and suffer, they will tend to put their mind on it and try to be logical and push the emotions down. That can cause them a lot of trouble in the long run. They tend to be very orderly people. They like order in the environment to think straight. They tend to be punctual, again, out of consideration for others, which is on their mind a great deal of the time. The types of ailments that natrum remedies are able to cure, or at least greatly alleviate, are migraines, headaches of various kinds, eczemas, cardiac conditions, particularly arrhythmias, and allergies, canker sores. Natrum people tend to be aggravated by sun, and they're warm-blooded, and they crave salt, or they may be intolerant to salt. I'm racing through this because I'm trying to get to some other remedies. Another major one is the Kali family of remedies. Kali is our Latin name for potassium. Again, not a deficiency, just the energy of the personalities who respond to the Kali remedies. They tend to be more conservative, conventional. They think in terms of right and wrong, black and white. They don't have many wrinkles because everything is quite clear to them in right and wrong, black and white type terms. They tend to want to fit in. They don't stand out. They don't exaggerate themselves. They follow rules. They're very obedient, and they expect others to be so also. Their ethics, instead of being because of thoughtfulness between human beings, their ethics are, they believe, come from God or from a higher power or from tradition, from the power of tradition. So whatever is traditional, conventional, just as obvious common sense to them to follow that because that's what's worked for mankind for a long time. These remedies tend to be very useful in curing high blood pressure, respiratory problems, kidney problems, arthritises of all kinds, gastroesophageal reflex disorder, GERD, in other words, heartburn, simpler way to say it. I want to make a point between natrums and kalis. Natrums are the salts outside of the cell in the body, and kalis are the ones that are inside the cell. In other words, potassium predominates inside the cell and sodium predominates outside the cell. So a kind of symbolic way to differentiate between these two types of remedies is that the extracellular sodium, natrum, is more relational. They think in terms of relational things. And the calis, the potassium, they tend to get their worldview from tradition, from the intracellular point of view that everything is okay as long as it's within the cell. It's just a side point, but it's important to think about because sometimes in a case you can differentiate that way. Another well-known remedy is argentum nitricum, which is actually silver nitrate, the very thing they put in babies' eyes when they're born. People who need this remedy are focused very much in creative realms. It tends to be singers and actors. People use their voice a lot, or even not just musicians, but artists as well. Creativity seems to be their worldview, their core way of looking at the world, of what's meaningful in the world for them. Unfortunately, their awareness and their sensitivity can lead to a lot of phobias. It's one of the major remedies for airplane phobias, claustrophobia in airplanes, any kind of closed space, fear of heights, fear of even public speaking, even though they tend to be performers or actors in some way. A corollary to that, though, is that they also tend to be OCD. They tend to be obsessive compulsive about things. So they will go into a panic state. It's a big remedy for panics. And then they'll suddenly discover in their mind, oops, wait, that's kind of crazy, and they'll drop it. Again, it's mind over matter, but it's kind of happens to them rather than a willful act on their part. So argentum nitricum is famous for curing all kinds of phobic ailments, OCD type problems, especially throat ailments of any kind. Has a lot of bloating and colitis, so it's able to cure those things. I've seen it be curative in ankylosing spondylitis, iritis, other kinds of autoimmune disorders. Argentum nitricum people tend to be warm-blooded, and they tend to crave both salt and sweets. And finally, I'll see if I can get in a brief description of aurum, which is gold. Aurum people tend to have the entire globe in their vision. They're always thinking in global terms, and they want to make a contribution in global terms. So they're always trying to change things for the better on the world as a whole. They very much tend to be leaders. They naturally gravitate toward it. It's not that they're ambitious. They just have this big global vision. They often tend to be CEOs of large corporations or the head of causes trying to save the world in some way. They also have an aspect that can be sensitive to romantic relationships and difficulties there. So they also are a good remedy for grief. And some of the salts of gold, of aurum, are even more so that way, but I won't go into that. So the range of things that this remedy can cure includes high blood pressure, various cardiac complaints, to some extent strokes, and it seems to have a predilection for vision problems for some reason. So these are just very brief descriptions. I could spend a lot more time describing. I could spend a whole day on every one of these remedies, and an entire couple weeks on the entire mineral kingdom. So we won't get involved in that. I just wanted to give you a taste of a few of the most commonly used minerals in our Materia Medica. Thank you.